Alright guys, Dominic here for Kit Guru, and today we are taking a look at GPU performance in Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. Released just last Thursday, I've spent the last few days benchmarking over 20 different graphics cards, over 2 different image quality presets, and 3 resolutions, so we can find out exactly how much GPU horsepower you need to play this game at a decent frame rate. Let's dive into it. Getting into it then, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora has been developed by Massive Entertainment, and it's using the latest iteration of the Snowdrop engine, which you may be familiar with from Tom Clancy's The Division series. The engine has been radically updated this time around though, with ray tracing at its core. It features ray trace reflections, shadows, and global illumination, and while there are different quality levels, you can't actually turn ray tracing off. It's very much a core part of the updated engine. It is an absolutely fantastic looking game though. I've not played hours and hours, but the visual quality on offer is obvious almost immediately. There are a good amount of visual settings to tweak, including 4 presets from low, medium, high and ultra, and the game also supports DLSS Super Resolution, FSR and FSR frame generation, though DLSS 3 frame generation and XESS are not yet included. For the purposes of this video, I did benchmark at native resolution using TAA, but I will take a quick look at both the image quality and performance on offer from using both FSR and DLSS later on in this video. For my testing today then, I am of course using our regular GPU test system, which is provided to us by PC Specialist. This is built on Intel's i9-3900KS CPU, and that's paired with the Gigabyte Z790 Gaming X AX motherboard, and we've also got 32 gigs of Corsair Dominator Platinum DDR5 memory. The latest game-ready drivers from Intel, AMD and Nvidia were used, all of which list support for this game specifically. The first thing I want to look at today then is preset scaling, tested on both the RTX 4070 and RX 7800 XT at 1440p resolution. Overall scaling is very similar between the two GPUs, with the high preset offering about 35% better performance than ultra, the medium preset is only about 12% more performant than high, while the low preset offers another 10 to 12% FPS boost over medium. Based on these results, I decided to benchmark the ultra and low presets in this video, so we get both the best case and worst case scenario. That being said though, the low preset is still a very good looking option. Despite the name, I'd say it actually looks better than a lot of games' medium or even high presets. The main difference versus ultra just being a bit more pop-in and lower resolution shadows, which did cause a bit of flickering. If you're interested as well, although Avatar does include a built-in benchmark that reports a ton of different metrics, I actually decided to use a custom scene running through a jungle area of the open world. It was just a bit heavier overall than the benchmark. I couldn't say it's a worst case scenario, but it was certainly above average from what I saw during my initial playthrough. Kicking things off then with the 1080p Ultra preset results. It is worth saying that I have chopped each set of results in half, otherwise the chart was just going to be way too crowded, so this is the lower half of the results. Straight away we can see for a good handful of GPUs, 1080p Ultra settings are just way too demanding. Even the RX 7600 isn't able to keep the 1% lows above 30 FPS. The 4060 is the first GPU that can do that, but even then, it's not a particularly smooth experience. The 3070, 7700 XT and 4060 Ti are all in that next tier up, offering average frame rates just over 50 FPS with the 1% lows over 40 FPS. For the second half of the chart then, we're starting to get to cards that can deliver a 60 FPS experience, but requiring a 7800 XT or 6800 XT for 1080p 60 FPS is pretty demanding indeed. We can also start to see Nvidia GPUs significantly outperforming their AMD rivals, with the 3080 faster than the 6900 XT, while the 4070 Ti on 91 FPS is a good chunk better than the 7800 XT and is actually on par with the 7900 XTX, which is not what we'd expect to see. The RTX 4080 is also well clear of the 7900 XTX, sitting on 113 FPS on average, while of course the 4090 leads the way with an average frame rate of 143 frames per second. Let's try out the low preset then, and here I did also test the 6500 XT. However, it was an absolute disaster and couldn't even load in the 1080p low preset textures, so that continues to show what a dire GPU the 6500 XT really is. Above that though, we have the RTX 3050, which is even struggling to hit 40 FPS at 1080p low settings, while the 6600, A750 and RTX 3060 are all just about hovering in that 50 FPS region. The 4060 and 6700 XT are fairly closely matched too, which again is a bit unusual, but both are delivering a pretty smooth 60 FPS experience. Once again, the 7700 XT, 3070 and 4060 Ti are closely grouped together and can hit 90 FPS at 1080p low settings. All of the rest of the GPUs are easily capable of hitting 100 FPS or higher using low settings, starting with the 7800 XT and 6800 XT at the bottom of the chart. The 4070 and 3090 are a touch higher, hovering around 120 FPS on average, while the 7900 XT and 7900 XTX occupy the next tier above. The 4080 is second place in the chart with an average of 183 FPS, while if you really want to hit over 200 FPS at 1080p low settings, the RTX 4090 can do that too. Stepping up to 1440p, I actually tested fewer GPUs here, as if they couldn't do 1080p ultra settings, then 1440p ultra settings obviously isn't going to happen either. As it turns out, even the likes of the RX 7700 XT do struggle here, with the 1% lows barely above 30 FPS. The 6800 XT and 7800 XT can only average just above 40 FPS, and even the RTX 4070 can't hit 50 frames per second at these settings, which is pretty mind-blowing and just shows you how heavy this game can be. We still see strong Nvidia dominance over AMD though. The 4080 crushes the 7900 XTX, and in fact, the 4080 is the first GPU which can hold the 1% lows above 60 FPS at this resolution. Above it, of course, sits the RTX 4090, delivering just over 100 frames on average. As for 1440p low settings then, the bottom half of the chart sees the likes of the 3050 and the 6600 struggling, while the 7600 is only just hitting over 40 FPS. The 7700 XT, 4060 Ti and 3070 are much smoother though, delivering solid 60 FPS experiences, while the 7800 XT can go one better and keep the 1% lows above that 60 FPS mark. The higher end cards also deliver a good experience at 1440p low preset, though you would certainly expect that. The likes of the 3080 and 4070 are able to deliver over 80 FPS, while the 7900 XT and 4070 Ti can hit 100 frames per second. The 7900 XTX isn't much faster than the 4070 Ti though, but again we have the 4080 and the 4090 sitting well clear at the top of the chart. Up next then we have 4K gaming, and it's probably not a surprise to you at this point that 4K ultra settings is very demanding. Very few GPUs can run this smoothly without any form of upscaling. The 3090 for instance, which was a £1,500 GPU not that long ago, can't even keep the 1% lows above 30 FPS, nor can the 4070 Ti. The first GPU that can do that is actually the 7900 XTX, and even the RTX 4080 is only hitting 42 FPS. The RTX 4090 is of course the best of the lot, almost hitting 60 FPS, but even this GPU can't quite manage that at native 4K. 4K at the low preset though is a different story. If you're happy with about 40 FPS, then the 6800 XT or 6900 XT will do a job here, while the 3090 is smoother still, managing just below 55 FPS on average. The 7900 XTX is just about a 4K 60 GPU here using low settings, but it is still behind the RTX 4080 on 75 FPS, while the 4090 can deliver just over 100 frames on average. Now, I did mention that we would take a quick look at both DLSS and FSR, as chances are you will want to enable some form of upscaling in this game for higher frame rates, as it is just so demanding. Comparing both upscalers then set to their quality mode, at 4K I actually think FSR looks a touch sharper, likely due to the extra sharpening applied by its algorithm, which doesn't always happen with DLSS now. There's not much visible ghosting or shimmering from either solution though, so if you are gaming at 4K, I think both will deliver good results. FSR does fall off a lot harder at lower internal resolutions though, and I wouldn't really recommend it for 1080p or even 1440p. I just noticed a lot of shimmering and breakup of fine details like foliage, while the ground texture exhibits a lot of shimmer too, something which is less noticeable using DLSS. Both upscalers do offer very similar performance uplifts however, with DLSS quality giving a 40% boost compared to 1080p native, a 54% boost at 1440p, and a pretty significant 93% uplift at 4K. FSR quality mode, and this is without frame generation I might add, does basically the same thing across all three resolutions. The main difference between the two is really the image quality and not the performance differences. So that brings us to the end of this GPU benchmark video for Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Hopefully you found it useful, and if you have already been playing the game, do let me know how you've been getting on down in the comments below. No doubt about it, this is a very, very good looking game, but it does have GPU requirements to match, as the ultra settings are highly demanding. Even the likes of the 4070 Ti can't do a locked 1440p 60 FPS, while native 4K gaming is out of the question for everything apart from the 4080 and 4090. Thankfully, the game's lower settings still scale pretty well and look very good, even then though the RX 6600 for example was only delivering just below 50 FPS at 1080p using the low preset, so there's really no guarantee that this game will run well on older or slower cards. The other trend I noticed is just how much faster Nvidia's GPUs are compared to their AMD counterparts. Across the board, Nvidia was just winning all of the key matchups. The 4080 crushed the 7900 XTX, the 4070 was faster than the 7800 XT, and even the 4060 was considerably ahead of the RX 7600. To me, it would really seem this is down to the updated Snowdrop engine and its heavy integration of ray-traced effects, though it does leave me wondering why AMD decided to sponsor Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, as its GPUs don't actually look like the best way to play the game, but what can you do? Anyway guys, that is where I'm going to leave this video, so if you liked it, please do toss me a thumbs up, and as always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and ding that notification bell so you don't miss out when we upload a new video. You can also find a link in the description to our Discord server, where we'd love to carry on the conversation. And while you're there, you can also find a link to our merch store, where you can pick up a cool t-shirt like one of these on screen. And lastly, if you are feeling particularly generous, you can even consider backing us on Patreon. That's it for this one though guys, I'm Dominic for Kit Guru, and I'll see you in the next video.